Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rat Lab podcast. Yeah, this is something new, very much so. Obviously, this is going to be like an episode 0 or episode 1 type of deal, right? And it is an idea that I've had in my head for a little while now, but I've wanted to do it with one of my friends, a fellow YouTuber, something like that. But my friend groups are a little sporadic, and also we're on other sides of the country and sometimes the planet at any given point in time, so it can be a little hard to coordinate with them all. So I've decided to start out by just doing it myself. Just recording myself sitting here and talking right into the microphone for about an hour or so long, depending on how impassioned I get about the subject at hand, and just see where it goes. If this works, if this takes off in some capacity, perhaps I'll occasionally bring on friends or other people as guests and or co-hosts, and we'll see how things progress from there. But yeah, that is what we're doing today. We're doing a podcast, and of course, I have to get across what the conceit of the podcast is, and if you know anything about my channel, you know my whole thing is video games and the gaming industry in general. So that's going to be the subject of the podcast, is the gaming industry and video games and whatever I'm doing involving that realm, or anything even vaguely related, or really just whatever I feel like talking about at the time, because it's my channel, it's my podcast, it's my videos, I can talk about what I want. It just so happens to be that most of that is video games. So, But yeah, there's a lot of work I have to do to make sure a podcast like this works. Obviously, everyone's doing a podcast right now, and plenty of people have far better experience with audio than I do. I pretty much just have a decent microphone, and that's about it. I have no experience actually editing audio and making it sound better. And my accent has a tendency to mess with things sometimes, if that makes any sense. I'm from the East Coast, and a lot of East Coast accents have a tendency, obviously when I say East Coast I mean United States, but regardless, a lot of East Coast accents have a tendency to remove certain consonants from them, right? They remove some very specific consonants depending on the region, right? New York sort of. Maybe not New York as much. New York kind of stretches it out a lot. But, like you go into the South or something like, Georgia, which it's East Coast. Yeah, it's East Coast. They've got a border on the coastline. Yeah. Yeah, that's where Savannah is, obviously. But you go down to Georgia and you see like you get things like what the cliche, the Fred Armisen joke is they pronounce it Georgia. Georgia, you lose the R. They sort of ditch the R in Georgia. Atlanta, you pronounce Atlanta correctly, you basically just skip the T altogether. Atlanta, right? Or it's pronounced more like a D. I have something similar. I have a similar tick. Anyone who may or may not be well versed in their North American accents could probably guess what part of the East Coast my accent may or may not be from, depending on certain phrases that I use or the way I pronounce them. But I'll let you figure that out. I will not specify. But yeah, so I have to try and maybe pronounce some of my words a little bit more, be a little bit more careful about that kind of thing, just so you can really hear what I'm saying, because I also pronounce certain syllables just really quietly, and then the microphone just decides to cut off, and then it just stops hearing my voice at the end. So, my sentences they cut off sometimes. It's it's not that good. But I'll try my best there. I'll try my best. But, you gotta start somewhere, right? I'm starting here. Starting here with this spur of the moment, on a whim thing in my room. So, yeah, this isn't entirely on a whim. I've been planning on this for a little bit, but I do at least have because of that, I do at least have some notes on me here. For topics that I want to talk about, because I want to talk about things that are pretty recent as far as what I'm doing and what is interesting me at the time for like the past week or two or three, right? So yeah, we'll go through some of this stuff and see how it goes. See what tangents I go off on, where I branch off from the basic topics at hand, that whole thing, right? We'll see how it goes. I've got a list. We'll see how long this goes. Actually, my first topic note is current situation. So basically, just explaining what my situation is like and how it relates to the channel. You know, just your general channel update sort of thing. And it's basically that let me hit my base station here for my headset. Um, Basically, my situation is that I am currently nearing the end of my college quarter right now, and I'm about to enter a winter break. It does mean that I'm having to put more effort into finishing off the big stuff for my classes right now. You know, the essays and projects and research and all that kind of thing. The boring stuff, right? The very boring stuff that everyone does when they're in college. I'm having to finish that up, which means time that I could be spending recording or writing the script for a video is instead being spent on that because, you know, that takes priority to the channel, unfortunately, because the channel is still just a hobby for me. It's barely made me any money before. I think it's only made me a few $100s over the past years. Like, I've been doing this for like 4 or 5 years, and I've only occasionally gotten a payout, entirely due to that Doom Eternal rant video, which is still getting views and comments to this day. It is ridiculous. That one video, it's the one reason I have 4,000 subscribers, and it's still getting a gradual uptick in views constantly. That video is a weird story, because that was in 2020. That was in early 2020, where I had finally gotten my hands on some editing software, some proper editing software. And I started making scripted reviews instead of the thing I did in 2019 when I really started making videos that weren't just like live streams and stuff. Throughout all of 2019, when I started, I had no editing software. I wanted to do game reviews and stuff like that, but I had no software to work with, right? So I tried to do a live version of WTF Is, that, you know, the series that made Total Biscuit famous, right? The idea basically being, I'm playing a game, I want to talk about the game, so I'll just record myself for like 10-15 minutes, maybe more, playing the game and talking about it and just showcasing it live. And it was not good. It was not good. Not good at all. No. No. Very bad. Very bad stuff. That's why that entire series, which I called To The Point, because that was supposed to be my gimmick, is I was just getting to the point about the game without any fluff, right? There's a reason all those videos, basically every video I made during 2019, whether it be a Let's Play, which was also a format that I abandoned because I found that it just wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable to do, trying to keep myself to a hard Let's Play schedule. All that stuff is now just unlisted. It's not gone. It's not deleted. You can find it. It's just unlisted. The way you find it on my channel is just by, you just go to the playlist section and you can find like my To The Point playlist, my playlists for all my Let's Plays and stuff like that. So if you're really inclined to see what my content was like in about the first year that I started doing YouTube in any real capacity, it's there. I'm not telling you to go watch it. I'm not telling you that at all, and I'm certainly not telling you that it's good. In fact, I'm telling you the opposite. It's very bad. Very, very bad. But yeah, when I finally got my hands on some editing software, I shifted over to doing scripted and edited reviews of things because, you know, I had the software now. I can do it because I was in college, and I had to take a class that was, I think it was like a Photoshop class, something like that. And so I used the Adobe student deal, that subscription, to gain access to Premiere for a while. I have abandoned Premiere at this point because I'm not paying that subscription fee. I have Magic's Video Pro X on me now, which it's an outdated version of Magic's by now, but it was just a one and done purchase. So, nobody's taking that editor away from me, and I will keep using it until it becomes completely unusable. It works fine for what I do, If I need something more advanced done on a regular basis, then maybe I'll consider it. But for now, Magic's Video Pro X works fine. And besides, I got it for like $25 from a Humble Bundle, along with a bunch of other software. So it was a really good deal too. I didn't get it for like hundreds of dollars, like some of that stuff is worth, But yeah, I started making that shift. And then the Doom Eternal thing happened, because Doom Eternal was, the big upcoming game. It was the beginning meme of 2020, Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing coming out at the same time, right? And there was that video footage that came out of Dean Takahashi, the guy who had trouble beating the tutorial for Cuphead. It was video footage that came out of him playing Doom Eternal and being just as bad at it as he was with Cuphead. And so at the time, I was still sort of transitioning away from the live video format, but I decided to do the Doom Eternal video anyway, because I thought a little rant video would be fun and it'll probably get a few more views than usual. I didn't expect it to explode the way it did, but, I expected, because Doom Eternal was a hot topic, that it would get a few more views than usual, and maybe that would give me just a little bit more of an uptick on my other stuff, maybe. Did not go nearly as how I planned it. And very soon after I did the Doom Eternal video, I promptly abandoned the live format videos entirely, because I just didn't like them. I preferred the scripted, edited stuff where I could take my time and create something that was really quality, some nice hard quality stuff, which I firmly believe my Rat Lab reviews for the most part are quality stuff. Even if I believe some are better than others, obviously I believe that I'm the creator of them. If anyone hates these videos more than me, I would be shocked, because I'm the guy who made them. So obviously I look at them and I'm like, oh no, there was that one little screw up I made right there. I could have fixed that. That kind of thing, right? So, but I do think they are good. And I stand by my statements in those reviews, because those reviews are not meant to be objective. They are meant to be my impression and my feelings on that game as I was playing it. Right? So I know some people, back before Ultra Kill really blew up and it was still in early access, or, early into its early access, I made an Ultra Kill review, and I got comments, at least one, I remember one, where a guy was upset at me for saying things like, I thought the weapons felt a little redundant sometimes. I can't remember my exact phrasing. I thought how I kept going back to the revolver over and over rather than necessarily swapping weapons all the time. And from my experience with Ultra Kill, I still stand by that. It feels like the revolver is just the best weapon in the game, and the rest are just kind of there to occasionally swap to when an enemy specifically needs you to use it on. But the revolver is just the best general weapon in that game. Regardless of what variant you use, it's still the best one. So it's like, yeah, the weapon loadout isn't exactly the best, especially for a boomer shooter, since your basic starting pistol is straight up the best weapon in the game, especially if you know how to use it. Right? It's not like Doom, where every weapon has its specific usefulness, as say for like, the basic pistol or something. It's not like that. I stand by that. And I also stand by the fact that I think the music in Ultra Kill isn't all that memorable. Not to say that it's bad. Not to say that's bad at all. No, it's very good. There's no track that really, I don't think of a music track when I think of Ultra Kill, I don't think of that. Ow, sorry about that. Um, I don't think of a music track when I think of Ultra Kill. I think of the gameplay, I think of the running around, and I think of the graphics. There's no song that really springs to mind when I try to imagine Ultra Kill. Nothing. There's no song that's truly memorable in there. Not that it's bad, just not iconic or memorable. That's taking up space in my brain, you know. But regardless of that tangent, um, yeah, the Doom Eternal thing, I promptly stopped, and while after that, time passed, most of the year went by, and nothing really happened. And as I got close to the end of the year, I decided to change my situation as far as all my videos go, and that's around the time I decided to unlist all of my old 2019 stuff, all the live format stuff, the to the point videos, the let's plays, etc. That's around the time I decided to do that because I was like, okay, I have a solid foundation for what I think is good content, for what I think is good stuff to put out, good reviews. Uh, so I don't want these old videos that I consider bad and from a different era in my channel to be recommended to people. Even though there's a very low chance that they would, I didn't want to take that chance to begin with. I wanted to be certain that if any of my videos are getting recommended to people, it's the stuff I think is good. So I went through and I unlisted everything from 2019 because it all had the no editing, the bad headset microphone, all of it. It was all awful. So unlisted all of it. Didn't delete it because I figured if someone wanted to go back and see how my channel progressed, they can. That's fine. But I didn't want them getting recommended. But the Doom Eternal one, obviously, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's a good video. I personally kind of regret making the video. I just don't like it. But I was considering unlisting it, just like everything else, because, I considered it bad content. But I decided against it because it was still new. In the sense that I made it after I got my new microphone, after I got the editing software, after I started making proper videos and started taking this whole thing a little more seriously, So I decided, alright, for the sake of being consistent, I'll only enlist the 2019 stuff and maybe something that I had made in like early 2020. I can't remember. I was like, okay, fine. The Doom Eternal rant, I'll keep it up. It's from the new era, the more modern era of my channel. So, okay, fine. And then cut to the Game Awards of 2020, and Doom Eternal got snubbed. Right? Doom Eternal got snubbed that year. Everyone wanted it to win something, but it got completely snubbed, and everyone was upset about it. And I'm pretty sure that is what sparked it. Because then people started finding the Dean Takahashi stuff, and then they found my rant about the Dean Takahashi stuff. From earlier in the year. This is December 2020 that this is blowing up. The video, I put out that video in like February of 2020. So cut to like almost a year later, and the video explodes. Like thousands, tens of thousands of views every day, up to all the way now where it's at 600,000 views, getting every little bit closer to 700,000 because it's at like 680 something K right now. And my channel just promptly exploded. As far as a small channel goes, I had like 35 subscribers at most at the time, right? That was that small. That's nothing of a channel, right? And then I got like a few thousand subscribers. Because people were like, I guess they just liked my opinion or something. So they subscribed to the channel, and some of them have stuck around. Obviously, I've bled subscribers over time, but I'm still at around the 4,000 mark. Well, I'm at the 4,000 mark. I'm at like 4.4 or something K. And that's just kind of where I've been since, and I've been kind of okay with that because I have other things that I'm doing, right? Other industries I'm trying to go into, other educational and skills that I'm trying to learn, all that stuff. So, it's not like I'm hedging all of my bets on YouTube and Twitch. Well, I'm not even on Twitch anymore. I stream on YouTube now. But, I'm not hedging all my bets on a YouTube career or anything like that. It's still very much a hobby for me. So I'm fine with the 4K. But, when I get the itch, I decide to experiment and try a new format, something like this podcast, for instance, right? And yeah, that's just kind of where we've been, and that video is just weird to me now. It just feels so weird because, I mean, it's still there, it's still getting views, and I still get comments, and I swear, I don't know what kind of people are finding this video and commenting on it, because the people who comment on this they're commenting on the video as if the video just came out. Like, as if it's new. They're not checking the upload date. I got a comment like 2 weeks ago from a guy saying, "Hey, can you cut out all the parts you're being silent?" It's like, what? Dude, my man, I'm sorry, but this video is almost 4 years old. I'm not going back and editing out a 30, 40 something minute video of me ranting at Dean Takahashi gameplay from like almost 4 years ago. I'm not going back and cutting out all of the quiet bits from it. And besides, I wouldn't even have done that back then, because the entire point was that it was just a live recording of me ranting. So I leave the quiet bits in. Kind of like how I'm going to leave the quiet bits in here, as much as I try to avoid the quiet bits in this podcast in general, because, it's just me talking, so I gotta be able to fill in all that quiet space with something, right? But yeah, it's just, that video is just really funny to me, how it changed everything. It changed everything, and I don't like the video. I don't like the video. The video I hate changed everything. Not hate, but, I don't think it's good. It changed everything about how I started this, and now I'm here recording a podcast that may or may not even be successful. I don't know. This is the first time I'm recording this. So, yeah, I don't know. I just went on a tangent there about video experimentation and what I'm doing right now. I hope you all enjoyed that little tangent. What else as far as my current situation goes? Future reviews, I will, for anyone listening to this, I will give you, if you've gotten this far, according to the recording software, according to OBS, I'm about 22 minutes in. If you've gotten this far in, I'll give you a little teaser about what my next review video is going to be on. I have my hands on right here, if you can hear it, that. I've got my hands on an original Xbox. Yeah, that short I made about Xbox memory card, yeah, it's because I have an original Xbox on me now. Not an Xbox 360, not an Xbox One, the original. I have a 1.6 model from 2005, 2006, one of those 2 years. I forget what the manufacturing date was. I checked the sticker before. I have that now, and I have a bunch of original Xbox games, and I am recording one of them to review, because the game seems notably bizarre and bad. I've played a good few hours of it now. It is a very bad game. It's very clunky, very janky. It does not look good. The gameplay is very basic. I'm not going to specify which one it is. You can figure it out for yourself. But yeah, it's just very janky, and it was made in like 2001, so it was one of the earliest Xbox games. Not the earliest. That's Fusion Frenzy, but it's one of the earliest, and it was made by someone outside of Microsoft, I think. Or it was made with Microsoft's help, but it was not made like, by Bungie or anything, who had like direct contact with Microsoft at all times to be able to optimize the engine and all that, So the game is very janky, the graphics are weird, everything just feels out of whack. Like, here's your hint, it's a third-person action game, right? It's a third-person action game. And everything about it is very, like, proto-Fable, almost. It's proto-Fable, that's the term that's come up in my brain to describe it. Because everything about the gameplay, and even the graphics, feel like Fable on some level, but it's just worse in every way. The camera is janky. The camera, oh god, the camera annoys me so much. It is permanent. The camera controls are permanently inverted. I don't know why they made them permanently inverted, and I don't know why. One, I don't know why they made them inverted to begin with, and secondly, I don't know why they're permanent. I don't know why you can't change the inversion on it. You can do it with other games. You can do it with Crimson Skies and all that stuff, which I do have Crimson Skies on me. It's very good. Very good. But yeah, I don't know why for this one they just never added the option to change the camera control from inverted to not. It makes trying to play it so much worse. Because I hate inverted camera controls. On stick, it's awful. I can't do it. I cannot deal with it. It's awful. But I'm trying to force myself to deal with it for this game because I think this game would make for an interesting review. But I will not specify what the review is, what the game is. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. If anyone somehow manages to figure that out, well, good for you, I suppose. I don't know how you did that, but you're a smart cookie. But yeah, that's the situation on reviews. I pretty much work at it one review at a time, almost exclusively. No real reason. I'm just, I do a bunch of stuff, and so I find it hard to find time to record multiple reviews at the same time. I tend to just do them one at a time. So that's also why I like to give myself a 2-week gap between videos, so that in case anything does happen in my life that prevents me from working on it, I have time to catch up, right? And that it all helps, right? Yeah, that's the current status of the reviews. Now then, how about anything else that isn't just about the channel? Well, I'll get onto that in a moment. I have topics, but let me just take a little sip of my drink here. There we go. Yeah, I needed that. It's some iced tea, or formerly iced tea. All the ice is melted into the tea by now, but yeah, it's some nice cold tea for my throat. So, anyway, as far as other subjects, another thing I'm doing in my real life, the job that I've always been working towards, is game developer. I've always wanted to be a game developer, programmer, designer, whatever. And so I am working towards that now. That's what my degrees are being aimed towards. I have a degree in computer science now. I'm working on another degree right now, a bachelor's. All that stuff. So I'm doing that, and I'm also working on learning various game engines. I have experience with Unity. I have technically shipped a game in Unity before. Not with a price tag or anything like that. It's just a game up on itch.io. But I have shipped a Unity game before. And I have done some things in Unreal, although my experience with Unreal is far more sporadic than with Unity. But ever since the Unity fiasco, I've been hearing a lot more about the Godot engine. And eventually meaning now, I have decided to try it out. I am learning how to use the Godot engine, which, for those who don't know, it is a game engine like Unity or Unreal. But the gimmick is that it is a free and open source engine, meaning that you don't have to deal with licenses or royalties or anything of the sort with your game. Unity makes you pay a subscription and then makes you gradually pay them even more, depending on how successful your business is. Unreal takes royalties from everything you make after you make a certain amount of money, all that stuff. You don't have to deal with any of that, nor do you have to deal with the company updating their terms of services like what Unity did earlier. You don't have to deal with any of that with Godot, because it is a free, community-developed, open-source game engine. If you really wanted to, you could take Godot and fork it off into your own version of it for your own personal game engine if you really wanted to. So you have all those options available, and you don't have to deal with any licenses or royalties. It's great. It's great. I actually realized recently, a game that I streamed pretty recently, Dome Keeper, was actually made in Godot. I didn't know that, but yeah, that's cool. It's made in Godot. See, a decently good and, as far as I can tell, successful game was made in the Godot engine. So I'm learning how that works, and I really like the system. Honestly, I really like it. So, the big thing with Godot is that it uses a node and signal system. That's its gimmick. Right? Every engine has its gimmick as to how you build stuff with it. You're about to get your game design lessons straight from me here. Um, Unreal, for instance, has one. Unreal's just really good with first person shooters, because it's made for Unreal Tournament. Um, so it's really good at making levels and designing guns and physics and lighting and all that stuff, 3D environments. And Unreal's gimmick, as far as building stuff and programming, is blueprints. That's what they call it, the blueprint system, where basically instead of just straight up typing out lines of code, you instead have these little blocks of code that do specific things, and you string the blocks together like Scratch. If anyone remembers what Scratch was, that little programming themed video game that plenty of us played in school. I played it in school. Where you just had like these little blocks, and you just put the blocks on a little game area, and you strung them together to have them do things like door open, then you string that to the push button. You take like the push button block and you string that to the door open blocks. That way when you push the button, the door opens, right? It was meant to teach you basic coding logic as far as video games went, right? But without actually teaching you how to code, because that's a far more complicated endeavor. Unreal's basically trying to take that and turn it into a real professional thing with blueprints, where you're doing basically the same thing, just way more complicated, because it's all blueprints and stuff now. It's all very detailed functions that you can go about and mess with as you want. So that's Unreal's gimmick, as well as graphical fidelity. Unity's gimmick is the scene and object system, where every level is a scene and everything inside the level is a game object. So really all you're doing is putting game objects in your scene and then putting scripts inside the game objects telling them what they do. And that's about it. Pretty intuitive, right? Because anyone can understand how object do thing works and object interact with other objects, all that. It's easy to understand. Godot has something kind of similar, but also not, in the form of nodes and signals. What those are is... that sounds weird. That sounds wrong. What nodes are basically everything in your game. Even levels. Levels are nodes. When you start a game, like say you're making a 2D game and you make your first level is your node 2D, I believe it's called. And that's basically just a very basic 2D node where you just do anything you want with it. It's functionally just a level node. And then every object or thing in the level is a child node of the original level node. Everything branches off from the original level node. And then other nodes that you need to work with each other can be child and parent nodes of each other, and you attach scripts to those nodes and all that. And I find it oddly intuitive. It sounds complicated trying to explain it, but I find it oddly intuitive because there's a node for basically everything, right? Like, you want to create a character. Okay, create a character node and put the sprite inside the character node and change its collision shape to the shape of the sprite and all that. And there you go, you have your character. You do that for enemies, objects, players, all that stuff. If you want like an invisible wall, for instance, you create an area 2D node and just make it impossible to go through. Or you can create an area 2D node of a certain shape that triggers something in its code when an object, like a player character, enters that area. That sort of thing. I hope that makes it a little bit easier to understand how the node system works. And signals, what signals are, is basically because every node has specific types of purposes to them, right? Like the character body 2D node is specifically meant to be a node for characters, whether they be player or NPC. So there's specific functions. Every node has its own signals. And so you click on a signal and it automatically creates a script for you, an empty script with the beginning of that signal in it. So it's already connected to the signal. So if you wanted to, say, have something be where, I don't know, you click on a door and the door opens, or click on a button and the door opens, right? You would create a node, say an Area 2D node, right? And what you would do there, maybe not an Area 2D node, maybe like a rigid body or something like that. Basically, you create the relevant node, and then you proceed to create a signal, and the signal would be, say, for a door you want to open, the signal would be when clicked on. That would be its signal. The signal when clicked on, something like that. You click on that signal, and then automatically, it's already created a function in your script, which by default is GD script, which is just Python. It's just Python. You can use C++ or C#, but GD script is the default, and it's made for Godot. But it's just glorified Python, really, so I'm having to learn that too. Oh boy. But yeah, all of that aside, sorry about that, I was just tossing something back onto my there. So you just click on that, and then boom, you've created your function. And so now all you have to do is just code in the part where the door opens, you know, where the sprite changes to an open door, or the sprite just disappears, and the collision body maybe becomes transparent or something. But becomes passable. And there you go, done. You don't have to create like weird chains of if statements to get to get the door to open or anything like that. Like you might have to if you were using C# or something like that. Which I certainly remember from my time working with Unity. But yeah, it's a very interesting system, and I'm learning it a good deal. I'm liking it quite a bit. It's very enjoyable. Hopefully more games are made with Godot in the future, because I think Godot has a lot of potential to help create maybe a second indie renaissance, if you will, since indie developers with Godot won't have to deal with any of the trouble that is dealing with Unity or Unreal when trying to make their game. They won't have to give up a bunch of their potential money to these massive corporations if they would just want to make their video game. You know? A bunch of indie developers are scraping by as is, and then they make something in Unity or Unreal, and even more of their money that they earned themselves because they're the one making the game is just taken away from them as royalties, or from a Unity subscription fee or something like that. Godot has none of that because it's entirely open source and community developed, so you never have to worry about that, and it's just really good. I think it's really cool, and I think it could help create a second splash of indie games all over the place. Not that there isn't a lot of indie games out right now. There are far too many to count, but you know, something more akin to the indie renaissance of the early 2010s, right? Where indie games were coming out every year, and every year had an explosion of like a 3, 4, 5 exceptional indie games that changed the industry around them forever, the whole thing. You know, maybe Godot could help with that by allowing developers to not have to worry about dealing with some big company looking over their shoulder of whatever game they're playing, of whatever game they're making. So, yeah, I think it has a lot of potential. I really like it. And I really want to be able to learn how to make stuff in it as well, and hopefully find other people who want to learn how to make stuff in it, and maybe find a team. You know, maybe I'll find a team of people to make something in Godot with one day. You know, that would be great. Being able to start my own indie game company, that would be great. Just a small studio. I don't think I have. I'm not sure I'm the kind of guy to have ambitions to really start like a big studio or something like that. But you know, an indie studio, a little studio that pumps out some decent games that people enjoy and all that, a little community there. I think that'd be good. I think that's a good future. I really like that. Um, Actually, speaking of indie game, an indie studio becoming big and massive. The next thing on my list here is Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know why I put it there. I think I put it there just because I keep replaying it. I haven't actually gotten an ending in Baldur's Gate 3. I'll fully admit it. I haven't reached the end. I have one of the ending achievements because I did the Act 2 ending where Gale blows himself up. Because I heard that apparently it's a real ending. You can just tell him to do it, and it's a real ending. The game's just straight up over, and you get an achievement for it. It's like, yeah, you do. Gale blows himself up. The Nether Brain is destroyed. The Dead Three, or the champions of the Dead Three are gone, and everyone else is dead too. Except it points out, as Elminster's looking out into the distance, it points out that without the Nether Brain controlling the other Mind Flayer parasites, suddenly the Sword Coast is having an epidemic of Mind Flayers just suddenly appearing out of nowhere. Because, there were a bunch of people in Baldur's Gate who were abducted and had the parasite inside of them. And oh no, now there's a Mind Flayer army on the Sword Coast. Oh dear, bad ending. But I haven't actually gotten to the full end of Act 3 before. And it's because I have a thing. I have a thing called restartitis. Some of you may have heard of the term before. It's a popular one. Where essentially, I play something like Civ or Baldur's Gate, an RPG or a 4X game, something like that. And I play it for a while, I get through it, and then I stop for the day or the night and whatever. And then maybe I don't play it the next day, or maybe I do. Either way, it's been a little while since I was playing it. And then I jump back in, right? I take a break from it, and then eventually I get the urge to play it again. I jump back in, and I completely forgot what's happening, what's led me up to where I am now, what's going on. I've completely forgotten everything, and now I feel like I just need to restart. I feel like I just need to restart, new character, and do it all again smoothly this time. And because of that, I barely ever reach the end of any of these games. I've only, somehow, by some miracle, I have reached the end of Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. I got a legend, I got the legend ending there, where I rejected all of the other mythic paths and just played as a normal person, and still won. That was one of the few big CRPGs like that I actually, finished. I reached an ending, which is already difficult enough as it is for someone like me with that whole restartitis problem. 1 second, take another sip. Alright. There we go. Nice tea. But yeah, I'm still trying to reach the end of it. And I have... The way I'm doing it right now is I have a character, a D&D character, a character that I'm going to play in my next actual real D&D campaign. Because I'm in a group of friends who play D&D together, right? So I've already rolled a character for the next campaign whenever we get to it. And to give him a sort of start, to get a feel for the character, I've decided I'm going to play as him in Baldur's Gate 3. And he's a dragonborn bard. Yeah. Basically a Skald Viking sort of thing. I think I made him, School of Valor? Yeah, pretty sure I made him School of Valor. Because again, it's supposed to be like a Viking bard sort of thing, like a Skald, that kind of thing. The more violence inclined bard, if you will. And so I made the character, and then I decided, for the sake of making things a little more interesting for Baldur's Gate 3 specifically, I've made him a dirge. Yeah, I've created a dirge bard, which is very interesting. A dark urge bard. So, the very violence inclined, the murderous psychopath, that one. Why did I do it? One, because Dirge. Dirge is it's enjoyable as far as I'm concerned, right? I like the idea of doing Dirge playthrough, but also because Dirge, I'm just calling it Dirge because saying Dark Urge every single time is just nah. The thing with Dirge, I'm pretty sure Dirge is they were meant to be the main character no matter what. Like that was meant to be your default backstory is Dirge. That's how it feels. It kind of feels like the Tav, the default main character with no real backstory. The Tav feels like they added that in at the very end so that players could still make their own characters however they wanted. Whereas Dirge feels like what they wanted your main character to actually be. Because Dirge has a fully. Because, one, if you play as a Tav or any of the other Origin characters, Dirge never shows up. Dirge is not a companion. He's not some hidden companion character for the game. Not a party member at all. Right? None whatsoever. I initially thought he was because my very first playthrough when the game finally fully launched was as a Dirge. So I didn't know that he was that he wasn't actually a party member. I thought, okay, I just picked an Origin character. If I make a Tav later, then he'll show up as a party member. No, he won't. Apparently, if you play a Tav or any of the Origin characters, the Dark Urge is dead. Dirge is dead. You find out later on in the game, Dirge is just dead. If you choose to play as Dirge, you are in one of the few timelines where he survives whatever killed him. And instead he has amnesia. And then he goes through a whole thing. You get plot points over time and all that. And you get interaction with the villains. You get unique interactions with the villains. All three of them. Because they all know who you are. And you don't know yourself. And so it feels like, the fact that you can fully customize them. That they don't show up if you don't choose them. And that the villains have specific interactions with them the whole time. It feels like they were meant to be the main character, but then they realized most people might not want to always play Dirge. So, they might want to be able to play a good or evil character that doesn't have all the murderous tendencies and dialogue and all that. So they just used the tab thing as your other option, Which, I certainly buy into the idea that they did that kind of thing at the last minute because, I know you could make your tab during the early access. I did so myself. I just think maybe they initially thought of doing that until they finished creating Dirge and then replaced tab with the Dirge, but then they decided to keep the tab in anyway because people preferred making tabs over having a predetermined backstory. I wouldn't put it past them to do that at the last minute because to my knowledge, Karlach was very much a last minute development. Like Karlach's voice actress was recording lines like months before the game launched, which means they were rushing to finish Karlach in time. Because I guess people just really wanted her, or they really needed to remake her, or something like that. I know her story got a full rewrite. They remade her character model and all that, so she looks much better now. But her character also got a complete rewrite in her backstory to make her the way she is now. And so it's like they, clearly they rushed changes all the way up to the end. So I wouldn't put it past them to have a thing of deciding at the last minute to not replace Tav with Dirge and to just have both of them as options. But it does mean that playing as a Tav feels kind of empty, almost, if that makes sense. Because Tav doesn't have a backstory. There's nothing unique about the Tav that gives them special interactions with the characters or the world or anything like that, because they're just the generic blank slate character with no backstory whatsoever. You don't even get to choose you get to choose the background, but the background is more for inspiration than actual unique dialogue options or anything like that. Maybe at some point in the future, the developers can they can do a patch update where they add in backstories for, I know that's a really big ask. That's more close to like DLC content than anything else, but I think the idea of adding in actual unique backstories that you can choose for your TAV to have would be much better than just the TAV having no backstory and no connection to the world whatsoever. Because as it stands right now, the only way your TAV can have any connection to the world is by picking, say, Paladin or Cleric as their class. Because Paladins and Clerics have dialogue options for almost everything, because, they're bound by their oath or their devotion to their patron deity. So they have a lot of specific opinions on certain things that give them a lot more character than, say, playing a fighter. Bard has some unique dialogue, but not really. Bard's unique dialogue is more like the occasional funny quip or musical joke than anything else. It's not really serious world building, it's just sort of quips. It's more jokey. Warlock, I think, has some unique world connection stuff, in that the Warlock's patron demon thing will constantly whisper in their head or something, tell them about what they want them to do, stuff like that. That gives them a bit more of a connection, but other stuff like Fighter, Ranger, even Druid and stuff like that, they don't really have as much of a connection to the game world, and so they feel a lot more boring and generic than the other types of classes do. So I feel like to make up for that, either the classes need more dialogue options, or you need to be able to choose backstories that have an actual connection to the world. Which is again, I know it's a really big ask, since the game is already fully out now. And so the only way something like that is happening is if if they release a DLC or really decide to go hard on the content updates and just record brand new lines or create brand new characters and quests to connect these new backstories to the world itself, right? It's a massive ask, and you know what? I would absolutely be okay with it being like a DLC, like a $10 DLC for backstories and new character quest lines that you can choose for TAV instead of Dirge. I think that'd be fine. I think I'd be fine paying for that. That's cool. I just, I think it's a good way of making the other classes not feel as boring if you choose to play them, which is a big deal for something like D&D, right? Because D&D, big part of it is being able to choose classes that have your class choice feel meaningful, essentially, right? You want your class choice to feel meaningful and connected to the world. You want to feel like your character is an established character in the Forgotten Realms world. I forgot what the actual world of D&D was called for a second there. And so if your class is like a fighter, if you enjoy playing a fighter, you're going to feel extremely boring and generic the whole time, because, to my knowledge, fighter doesn't have that much in the way of unique dialogue options in the world or unique ways of interacting with the world, because they're a fighter. So you have to be able to make up for it somehow. And as of right now, the only way you can really make up for it is by playing a Dark Urge fighter. But what if you don't want to play a Dark Urge fighter? What if you don't want to have the Dark Urge backstory slapped onto you? Well, then you're basically screwed, because the background mechanic in D&D, or in Baldur's Gate 3, doesn't have unique dialogue options as far as I can see. Or if it does, it's rare. Most of the background stuff is there for deciding how you earn inspiration points. But that's about it, So maybe they'll add that some point in the future. I don't know. I would certainly enjoy it, but yeah. Wow, I've gone on a lot of tangents. We are 54 minutes in. Alright, let me just take a sip of my drink here again. That's nice. Yeah, that is, I don't want to go into another full-on tangent about something else, because I'm considering ending at about the hour mark. What else would I talk about? I mean, I can talk about what my D&D session is like. The D&D is pretty fun. Um, in the D&D session, or one of them that I've been doing, I jumped into the session. I jumped into the campaign like mid-story, something like that, and I created a Skaven character. Yeah, yeah. I got well because my name's TheRatMan. I got memed into creating a Ratman character, right? So I created a Skaven, and he's a Skaven artificer, and he's level 16. He's incredibly broken. He's incredibly broken. Um, Especially now that I've figured out how the learning spell mechanics work on D&D Beyond. He's very, very broken and very silly because he has a rattling gun. That minigun thing that Skaven gunners use in Warhammer. Yeah, he has one of those. He has one of those, and it deals insane amounts of piercing. I think it's like it deals 10d8 piercing damage. 10d8 piercing damage, and that's assuming they fail a dexterity saving throw of 16. If they fail it, if they succeed, they take half of the 10d8. So there's no escaping the damage. It vaporizes anything within a straight line of it. Oh, it's hilarious. And he's got almost all of his spells are some form of AoE destruction. Like he's got Fireball, he's got Ice Storm, he's got Shatter, he's got Thunder Wave at like third level, third and fourth level. Fifth level is a Stinking Cloud because I thought it'd be funny. I thought Stinking Cloud would be funny, okay, and it is. It is funny. Unfortunately, most of the enemies I go up against, Stinking Cloud wouldn't be very useful on because they're either like poison resistant or they just have high constitutions or something like that. So Stinking Cloud, not the best, but you know, it's funny. It's funny. And just yesterday, just yesterday, we did a thing where I blew up a tower, right? I had to blow up a tower using a bunch of effectively magical gunpowder. And then we call it Witchstone. It's essentially magic gunpowder, right? So me being the artificer, I managed to figure out exactly how to blow up the tower in such a way that it falls where I want it to, so that way no one in the party gets hurt, and I make it hard for enemy soldiers to follow us, right? And before the tower could blow up, I DM'd our GM or our DM. I sent him a video of Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. Specifically, I found a YouTube video that was like the 1812 Overture, the good part. You know, the part that everyone thinks of. And so I had him play that through the Discord music bot as the tower is exploding, and he had me roll for damage on the tower because he gave the tower actual health. He gave it actual health points and a threshold for whether it would really fall or not. And oh boy, did I do it. I don't know what its health was, but man, did I blow it up because I rolled 500 D6s. He messaged me with a link to a website where you can roll as many dice as you want, and it will just calculate them automatically, right? And so I rolled 500 D6s all at once for damage, and got a damage score of 1,750. 1,750 damage. Blows up the tower, and it starts falling. It like every bit of it starts blowing up one by one as the 1812 Overture cannons go off in the background like that. Oh, it's great. It was great. I loved it. Like the character was also loving it too. He was like, "Ah, yes, yes, this is my moment of triumph." Yes, he's so excited. Oh, it was great. That was my shining moment, and also my Skaven became king of the Skaven in the session before that. So, yeah, my Skaven guy he's been doing a lot these past two sessions. He's been doing a lot. It's very fun, but he's also like, I think, chaotic neutral. Like, he really doesn't care about much morally aside from himself. And so because of that, and because I've been playing him for so long, because his campaign's gone on for a really long time. Because I've been doing that for so long, I've decided that my next guy, the Dragonborn Bard, he's going to be just a good character. Maybe chaotic good, maybe neutral good. Something like that. I'm never very good with lawful. Well, okay, pun aside, I'm never decent with lawful characters. I don't know, I just can't. I can't do lawful. Like, unless it's maybe the Judge Dredd kind of lawful, I can't really do it. I prefer chaotic and neutral good. So that's what the Dragonborn Bard guy is going to be. He's going to be like a neutral or chaotic good sort of bard character. And I think it'll be interesting. Finally playing a good guy again. You know? It'll be fun. It'll be fun. But yeah. That, I think, what time do we have on here? An hour and 30 seconds in? Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good. I'm surprised I managed to go this long. I guess streaming has helped me just start rambling on for long periods of time, you know? So, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end this podcast episode for today. I don't know when this is going to come out. I'll have to check the audio, see how it sounds and all that, see if I really feel like putting it out there and everything like that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rat Lab podcast, and hopefully, if all goes well, I'll make more in the future. So yeah, this has been the TheRatMan, and I will see you all there.